Good morning, everyone. And what a beautiful morning it is. Jesus said, "Whoever comes to me will never hunger." What do you hunger for? And I'm not talking simply about your next meal. I'm talking about that deeper hunger. Maybe it's for meaning or acceptance or self-worth or validation or anything else. Hunger is a part of life, and all of us hunger for a better life. Sometimes we look for what we think will fill us, but really it often leaves us unsatisfied, because often we rely on the wrong kind of bread, the kind of bread that perishes and leaves us only with a temporary sense of fulfillment. What many of us don't understand is that our deep hunger can only be satisfied through the assurance of God's unconditional love and enduring mercy. That's it. But often we look in the wrong places. In fact, there's a country song by that title, "Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places." And Kim and I are going to sing it for you right now. She said she would only sing it if I shut off my mic. No. We're really not that much different from the crowd that we saw in today's gospel. And the crowd that we saw in today's gospel is the same crowd that we saw in last week's gospel of 5,000 men who were fed with the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. And yet here they come again. They followed Jesus looking for another free lunch. But Jesus knows that their hunger is more than just physical need. They have an emptiness inside, but they can't quite pinpoint what it is. They know that this hunger that they have, they're trying to fill it with something which is material, when really what they need to be looking for is something spiritual. At first, Jesus fed them with compassion, but now he exhorts them to seek the bread that endures for eternal life. You and I have the same spiritual hunger. We hunger for more because we are made for more. We feel unsettled now because God has so much more that he wants to give us. And this insatiable hunger that we all feel can only be satisfied by Jesus, the bread of life. Today we're continuing our Summer of Saints message series, and we are focusing on a saint who found that hunger satisfied in the bread of life. A young person from Italy who died at the age 15. Only 15 years ago, in 2006. Blessed Carlo Acutis. All of us have this God-shaped hole in our heart. But Blessed Carlo found the one thing that can fill it, God himself. And so before he died, he said, "I am not afraid to die because I have lived my entire life not wasting a minute on things that don't matter to God." One of the striking things I think about Blessed Carlo is that he looks like any teenager who might be here today. In fact, if he were sitting here in our church, there would be nothing special to attract our attention to him. If you see him in pictures, he's usually wearing jeans and sneakers, and he has a mop of hair. Fit right in. But those who knew Carlo said that he had a hunger for God at a very young age. Surprisingly, though, he wasn't raised in a very strict Catholic home. His mother actually had only been to church 3 times before he was baptized. The day she was baptized, the day she received her first Holy Communion, and the day she was married. But Carlo hungered to understand Catholicism. Some people might ask, well, where did this hunger come from? It couldn't have just cropped up from nowhere. And it's not completely clear, but one thing in his family, they had a nanny from Poland who I think was somewhat devout. So whenever religious questions arise, they'd always refer them to her. And Blessed Carlo's inquisitive nature eventually led his mother to come to a more serious faith for herself. Carlo desired to receive First Communion a year earlier than his peers. And since he was hungry to stay united with Jesus, he began attending Mass each day and spending some time afterward in quiet prayer in front of the Blessed Sacrament. Eventually, he started going to confession each week. Blessed Carlo called the Eucharist the highway to heaven. Like many boys his age, he enjoyed sports, especially soccer, and video games, especially Pokemon. But before the kids think they can play video games all day, I should note, he limited himself to only 1 hour a week of video games. Also, it shows how God works through our natural talents. He eventually became adept at designing websites, and he designed a website to help increase people's faith in the bread of life. He made it about Eucharistic miracles, and you can actually still view this website today. Blessed Carlo once said he could not believe how people would wait in a long line for a rock concert. Because, he said, if they knew what awaited them in the Eucharist, there would be long lines to get into our churches, where God lives among us. Incidentally, if you wish to spend some extra time on this highway to heaven, our church, Our Lady of Fatima, will be open today at 3 p.m. for some quiet prayer in front of the Eucharist, and we'll have a few priests available for confession. Blessed Carlo understood at a young age that the world suffers from a narcissistic hunger to belong, to fit in, and for validation. In contrast, he said that we find happiness when we turn our faces up to God, because, as he said, when we look in, we find sadness. His mantra was, not I, but God. Not I, but God. Find God, Blessed Carlo said, and you will find the meaning of your life. Find God, and you will find the meaning of your life. When we receive the Eucharist, we truly receive Jesus into our hearts. He becomes our nourishment, giving us new life, so that we can see the world differently, so that we can choose love and forgiveness over words of anger and self-righteousness, so that we can choose authenticity and vulnerability over defensiveness and superficiality. Blessed Carlo has been called an influencer for God, not because he was worldly or wise with age, but because he recognized in his short life the only bread that satisfies our deep hunger. Too often, instead of looking up to God, we look inward. And all we find is that bread that perishes. And it's different things for different people. Maybe it's at the next opportunity, an empty amusement, a temporary gratification, whatever it is. But Jesus, as he said in the gospel, he wants to feed us. But too often, we're like the crowd in the gospel. Like the crowd in the gospel, we simply want full bellies, whereas Jesus wants to fill our hearts. In every situation, you have a choice to make. You can either choose the bread that perishes or the bread that endures to eternal life. And the choices that we make decide the type of life we will have and the happiness we will enjoy. Even in his short life, which was racked with pain near the end when he died of leukemia, blessed Carlo was happy because he received the bread of life. So the question for each of us is this: what bread do you hunger for? And what bread will you choose?